Greetings, everyone. My name is Bernadette Gildspinel. I'm a gallerist from New Orleans, Louisiana, and I'm a staunch supporter of the mission of Aziz Gallery here in Los Angeles. It is truly a privilege to introduce this distinguished keeper of our culture, Mr. John Simmons. With a career that spans 5 decades through photography, painting, acting, and other multimedia art forms, this award-winning culture bearer has left a sizable historical document of the African American and marginalized communities. Known widely and widely respected for his commitment to inclusion, diversity, and mentorship, today Mr. Simmons will be joined in conversation by Aziz Gallery curators, Jupiter June and Zuhura. Aziz Gallery is dedicated to build intergenerational and cross-cultural understanding through youth arts programs. Please join me in offering a warm welcome to Mr. Simmons and the curators of Chronicles of Our Culture. Thank you. Thank you.
But my first day at work, there was a 40-foot truck outside of the studio. And the 40-foot truck has all the lights in it and all the grip equipment. And I walk onto that truck, and they have what's called a grip box. It's a big wooden box, and it's where they keep their tools. And on the side of this box was every derogatory joke about every culture. Asian people, Mexican people, black people, and some real nasty Martin Luther King cartoons. So I looked at this stuff, and I know, because see, the people who owned the company, Cal and Roz Bernstein, they were activists. They wouldn't even have grapes on set when Cesar Chavez was working with the farm workers. You couldn't bring no grapes on set. As soon as styrofoam cups were a danger to the environment, no more styrofoam cups. So when I walked on that truck and saw those nasty jokes, it just didn't go with that environment that I had learned about. So I went inside and I called Carlton. I said, Carlton, I think I'm in the wrong place, man. He said, what do you mean? And I tell him the story of what's going on the truck. He says, do you want to be a cinematographer? I said, yeah, I do. He said, do you know any black people making movies right now? I said, no. Click. And he hung up the phone. And I spent 2 years with those cats, with those jokes. And a lot of the jokes were always verbal. And they'd say, Johnny, this ain't got nothing to do with you, man, but I need to tell this joke to everybody. And I lived through it, and I learned a lot of stuff. And there was this one cat named Jerry Posner. He was a Jewish guy. He sat at the back of the truck and would never participate in their actions. You know, he just always would stare at me while they were talking shit. And then I get a job at Warner Brothers. And at Warner Brothers, they put your name up on the wall. So it said John Simmons, Director of Photography. This is 20 years later, 30 years later. And I pull into my parking space, and there was Jerry Posner standing in my space. And he owned a company called Hollywood Rentals, a big company. He said, Johnny, I saw your name on the wall, and I knew that it would be there because you put up with all that shit on that truck. And when somebody would say, wait a minute, you'd wait a minute, and then you'd force them to answer the question. And I didn't even realize that I was doing that. Only thing I knew is that that was the only place where I was going to get what I needed, you know? So I was determined at that point that when I became in charge, I wanted my environment to look like this audience looks. I want my environment to look like the world we live in. And now, that's how my crews always look. They look like that from the first time I was ever the guy to hire people. And that's what I'm about right now. I think that it's important because all of us have an incredible contribution. And to keep it away from anybody is just a terrible injustice. And I want my set to be that kind of set that when a 12-year-old kid opens the door and takes a peep in there, they could see a possibility.